Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge. Alan Sanders here, along with my podcast partner extraordinaire,
Walt Murray.
Yeah, that'd be your cue. I did it a little differently.
I didn't know where we were going with that.
I did it a little different. Well, you know, I know we have to introduce each show, but sometimes I feel like I'm just reading a script, even though, as you know, it's off the top of my head. But we want to say welcome back to everybody, or if this is the first time joining us, we encourage you to look back at our previous episodes and even our previous seasons. We started off the podcast looking at a movie 1 minute at a time, and then it turned out to be looking at a person's life 1 moment at a time. And we're going to have a gentleman join us in just a little bit, somebody that Walt knew, and Walt will probably drive a little bit more of the opening part of the interview, but we are going to have Tyson Clabo join us in just a little bit, former NFL player and a star at Wake Forest, and we'll talk a little bit about his career and how he got involved with the National Football League. But before we do that, Walt, let's chat about the week in the last 5-6 days. I don't know what's been going on in the outside world too much because I've been trapped in one radio station after another covering for folks in Atlanta.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that you have had more airtime than probably anybody else in America this last week.
Yes, almost 6 hours a day between the different shows I was covering and taking care of. But you know what was great about it? At the end of the week, I felt great. I felt like I could do this, 6 hours a day every day. Now, I don't want to do 6 hours. I want to do 3. But that opportunity has yet to show itself.
Well, and it's funny because every time you start to do something like that, I'll send you a text or whatever and just say, it's just too bad there's nothing to talk about. And the news cycle lately has been so insane that you could probably do 6 hours standing on your head just reading off the AP feed.
Right. That is the true thing about being in this field, and it's fun to watch how certain subjects, depending on the tone of the day, suddenly some subjects aren't nearly as important as they were, let's say, a year ago.
Yeah, or 6 weeks ago or whatever. Yeah, I mean, and then of course you had the president and vice president in and out of Atlanta on Friday.
That's always fun for a Friday commute home.
Ugh. And I don't care which party you support.
Oh, yeah, no, I hate
the president coming to Atlanta is always a shit show.
Well, because Atlanta traffic is generally that without any help whatsoever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We need no help to totally screw our traffic up.
So beyond me being trapped in studios this week, I did get out this past weekend. I don't know if you were I know you've been saying before, you've been trying to mow the lawn, but the wife was big on, all right, it's time to till the soil in our raised garden beds. It's time to start planting. It's time. I'm like, dear Lord, is it already? I'm like, yeah, it was exactly this time last year when we realized, well, we've got nothing else to do. Let's build raised garden beds. Apparently that's coming back to bite me at the beginning of this year.
I was going to say, that was really dumb. What were you thinking?
I should have just said, no, I'm going to sit back and just drink until we get back to work.
Yeah, that would have worked.
No, not at all. Not in the slightest.
I know, Susan, that wouldn't have worked.
No, I mean, well, it would have for about 6 weeks, and then you would have been like, where'd Alan go? I have no idea.
Yeah, I should have buried you in the...
But my compost pile looks great, doesn't it? Look, anything could dissolve in there given enough time.
Well, and the bad thing for you is there are plenty of volunteers to help.
That's the problem. I have no problem with people willing to give Susan a hand. So
yeah, that's absolutely right. So yeah, so what are you going to plant this year?
I have no idea. Probably we're going to pull back on the corn because we always do corn on the cob, which is great, but we don't have a huge field. You only get like 2 or 3 meals total, and then you're done, but you've used an entire bed. Where we tend to eat a lot more peppers, we eat a lot more carrots, and we even grew potatoes last year, which was kind of cool. More lettuce. We eat a lot of lettuce. So probably going to shift things around to be more of the things that we would have at every meal. I'll tell you this, the asparagus bed, which I didn't know this putting it in last year, but we knew you can't cultivate the first year. You have to just basically plant it, let it go, wait till the winter, it turns all brown, and then cut it all the way down to the ground. And then as it grows in the next year, in year 2, then you get your sprouts in and you can cut them as you need. And I didn't know this. Asparagus continues to create for years and will spread. So we've already had 2 different meals with asparagus, which is one of my all-time favorite vegetables. Now that we grill versus anything my mom ever did when I was growing up as a kid. We never grilled anything, and I thought vegetables sucked. And then all of a sudden I put them on the grill or sauteed in a pan, and all of a sudden vegetables became like amazing.
Yeah, I air fry everything now.
Air fryer works
I'm the same
fantastic
way.
with asparagus. You got to be careful not to overdo it or it can get a little stringy, but yeah, absolutely. Great stuff.
Well, of course, that reminds me of one of my favorite Far Sides, where the ice cream truck's driving down the road, and it says asparagus truck on the side, and it's and the slogan is "I cuss, you cuss, we all cuss for asparagus."
For asparagus. Play on words. Well, here's the other thing, and I'm not going to get into anything too specific, but we had our pub crawl in downtown Cartersville, where I hail from, and it's been something we've been doing for years, the fall crawl and the spring crawl. And the coolest thing about that is we've been able to continue to have them. The last 2 was during the start of the pandemic. We were able to convince city council to give us a walk around ordinance to make people feel comfortable. And then right after the spring crawl is when they locked everything down. So for the fall crawl, we said, well, we had it for the spring. Let's do it for the fall. So then as the spring started coming around again, I was like, why don't we just make it an entertainment district? Kennesaw's got it. Woodstock's got it. Ackworth's got it. Rome's got it. Why can't we join the 21st century? And so battled that through, and it was really cool this past St. Patty's Day. The entertainment district has been locked. It's in place. It was passed by the city council. Took a lot of convincing and a lot of city council meetings. But Thursday, Friday, Saturday, now you don't have to be trapped in the restaurant. You can grab your adult beverage and your specific downtown Cartersville to-go cups and walk around like all the other grown-up cities around us.
Yeah, that is kind of nice. And 2, being in a state that has opened up a little faster than some of the others, there is a lot more going on, and it's starting to feel a little bit more normal, thank God.
Yeah, I think it's really weird. You know, I said this during the week, this past week on radio. I said a lot of times the cities, the cultural hubs, the urban centers tend to be where, you know, the art and the fashion and the things start, and then it radiates out, and eventually 2 or 3 years later, we out here in the country, we start saying, oh, we can wear our clothes like that. And then by that point, Atlanta's gone on to something else. I think the recovery is going to be the exact reverse. I think people that live inside the perimeter, they're going to decide to go out for the weekend. They're going to come out to a Cartersville. They're going to come out to a Woodstock. They're going to come out to a Dalton. And they're going to say, wait a minute. Everyone's walking around. Everyone's going to restaurants. Everyone's you would never know there's something going on. And I think it's going to come from the outside and radiate back in to convince people like, okay, get your shots, do what you have to, but we've got to get back to normal.
Well, my dad and his wife actually moved out to Woodstock a few weeks ago, and actually over the weekend. And one of their comments was being in a county that was stricter and more locked down just kind of had them in a bad space, and they wanted to be somewhere where they could get out a little bit more and do more. So I think that you're right. I think a lot of people are kind of making those kind of moves, and whether it be just for the evening or a permanent move, they're moving out.
Oh no, the mental health benefits of getting out, smelling fresh air, just breathe, having the sun on your face, and then interacting with people in a safe and whatever's comfortable for you. But I kind of like the idea of let adults be adults. If you're not comfortable, stay home, but let the rest of us go out and do what we want to do. And
yeah, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't.
So, all right, before we get to our guest, is there anything else that's been going on for you this week?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into everything going on, but it has been, my life goes from one crazy thing to another. So,
couldn't have been as crazy as during the pub crawl. I was trying to dodge people on my end.
Yes, I know you were. So, yeah, it's been a wild month. So, I'll probably get into that a little bit more as we go later into the season, but,
when the dust settles.
Exactly.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that's enough of two knuckleheads talking. We've got an actual professional NFL player joining us from basically the team that I adopted. We're going to talk about his career and bounce from team to team, but really, as far as I'm concerned, when I decided, I didn't have a whole lot of choice. When I relocated in 1985, I was only 15. We were coming down from Detroit. I grew up as a Lions fan. I had no choice because that's just what we did. My grandfather raised me that way. My dad raised me that way. But we moved down to Atlanta, and we thought, well, Detroit's a losing franchise. We want to adopt a local team instead. So we went with the Atlanta Falcons, and I have been a Falcons fan ever since, through thick and thin, through the good times and the bad. I have always enjoyed watching my Atlanta Falcons. And so it is my pleasure now to welcome to the stage our guest for the evening, former NFL player Tyson Clabo. Tyson, welcome to the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge.
Yes.
All right, Walt, you actually had this relationship. So normally, if I'm somebody I know, I kind of take the lead. It's your turn to take the lead.
Well, yeah, I won't go into all the details because I didn't really ask him how comfortable he was sharing all the details. But Tyson and I have some things in common as far as the makeup of our families and our kids. And I met him through another member of the staff at the Atlanta Falcons a few years ago, and have been able to follow his family and some of the awesome things that have gone on there over the years. And of course, followed his career as well. And when we were sitting down talking about who we thought would be an interesting person to bring on, his name was kind of at the top of my list. So I appreciate Tyson, you coming on and joining us tonight.
Hey guys, I'm happy to be here. Just looking forward. I mean, I listened to that whole little spiel there at the beginning. You guys are about to right up my alley as far as the intellect.
Well, I sure am sorry about that.
This ought to be a lot of fun.
Well, one of the things we always strive for at the very beginning of our interviews, and we'll get into the relationship of how you and Walt met, I think, because that happens a little down the line. Let's start with you back as a developing college player from Farragut High School over to Wake Forest. Tell us a little bit about what was that like to move from high school football, realizing you're going to school and you're going to be able to continue to play your game.
Right. So for me, college football was the Southeastern Conference. Right. So, I mean, not much has changed. Right. I mean, my dad played at the University of Tennessee. My cousin played at the University of Tennessee. My grandpa played at the University of Tennessee. And so I just kind of, I guess, assumed that I would end up there. Right. And so that didn't work out. And I was a little bit under the radar as far as my being a top tier talent when I was 18 years old. And so I didn't have a lot of options. And Wake Forest was a really good, obviously, academic university, and I really respected Jim Caldwell at the time. Still do. We stay in touch, and so Wake was just a place for me, and it was perfect. I got here really fast and realized that I was not good at football like I thought I was. Because the older, that's interesting, right? Every 18-year-old kid thinks they're the best thing that's ever. Like, they all think they're great, right? The best player on the team. No one can get by them. They score touchdowns against anybody, and then that all of a sudden, when all the best players and all the best teams come, and move on, then it just gets your margin of error just gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and you have to really refine your craft to compete. And luckily, I was able to hang on at first, because we had I was there my first year, had a coaching change, and Jim Grobe came to Wake, and I managed to make it through that. And then I just put my head down and did the work and tried to get better every year. And then, and even still, it was similar, coming out of high school, coming out of college was very similar for me. I wasn't really touted or like highly, thought of and all that. But I got a chance, and the chance was all I needed, just like when I came out of high school. And it took some time to develop and become the player that I needed to be successful. But once I got some stability, and I landed in the right program, and I managed to develop and become a pretty decent football player.
We've had this story recounted to us from some other folks before, saying that it took a lot of work. It took a lot of effort. It wasn't just, look at me, I'm automatically talented, I automatically get a starting position, I'm automatically the best, where I think a lot of kids think that in their younger careers. But what we're hearing over and over, which is actually the story we like to tell, it's hard work. Even if you're talented, you still have to put in the effort.
Guys, look, everybody's talented. Like the higher, the farther you go, everybody has talent, right? I can't tell you how many guys were better than me as far as talent that didn't make it for no other reason than they just, they just didn't have the work ethic, or they didn't have the right attitude or mindset, or just whatever, right? I mean, you hear about it all the time. I mean, people, some of the most athletic, talented people don't succeed. And I mean, talent is not a guarantee of success.
Yeah, and you do see those lists come out every once in a while, and a lot of them are kind of clickbait, but you see the top 10 worst number one picks. And obviously those guys are super talented, but something just didn't happen right. They just didn't end up in the right program, or they didn't put the right effort in, or they had some other problem.
Well, those guys didn't hold a gun to anyone's head either and say, take me, number one, or take
true.
me fifth. Right? I mean, somebody somewhere didn't do the homework, right? And,
right.
And picked the wrong person too, like that. Those guys, a lot of those guys did put in the effort and did try to do with them, and were labeled busts, but they just weren't. They were drafted above their head, really. And so,
and sometimes what we find out, which is it's a different game. Even a lot of college players we've interviewed said it's a completely different feel moving from high school to college, but it's an even different feel going from college to NFL. Some people are stars in the collegiate system, and then they don't have what it takes to survive in the NFL.
I mean, it's a business, right? And I mean, you have to treat it, and I mean, it's a job, and I mean, you have to treat it as such, or you'll get swallowed up.
Well, you probably also had the additional challenge of playing in the ACC, where the ACC has the reputation, of course, of being more academically challenging than the SEC or some of the other conferences. Did you find that to be a challenge for you making that move?
Look, I don't know why I wasn't as highly thought of coming out of college as some other people were. But I played a lot of really good football players, right, in that conference. I can't even begin to start the list of guys who played years in the NFL that I played against in college. So, I mean, it wasn't I played against top tier competition every week. And so now there might not have been as many of us out there, but I mean, there were really, really, really talented football players out there my entire college career, all 4 years of league. And
do you find that with that extra intellectual challenge that some of them were even smarter football players than you had seen?
You would imagine. I mean, if they're smart enough to get through Duke or Virginia, or even Georgia Tech as an engineer, right? I mean, you'd have to be smart enough to learn a playbook. But you would, for some reason, that doesn't always enter the minds of these people that are making these decisions. But it's been okay.
Back in college, as you watched your sophomore year turn into your junior, your senior year, you kind of moved your positions a little bit. It felt like you started off your career at least as a left guard, and then moved into the position of tackle. How did you feel as you were being sort of felt for where you best suited the team?
I mean, I didn't see it as a negative at all, actually. My senior year, we didn't huddle ever. And so we had, I think, 7 guys that rotated in at the line all the time. And I don't remember ever being one of the guys that came out. And so what I would do is, like, whoever would come in, people would go out, and I would just kind of look and see where there was nobody standing, and I would go play that position. And so I felt like I could play any position, to a point. And as I got older, I realized that I was never going to be a left tackle in the NFL. But I could play either guard, and I could play right tackle at a time better than anyone. And so, but having that versatility helped me to make my first roster for sure. Because the year I made my first roster in Atlanta, I was playing tackle, and we had a guy come in and retire. And then I had to move to guard, and I ended up making a team at guard. And I don't know that I would have made the team if I had stayed at tackle. So that it helped me in the long run.
Walt, how many times have we talked with either guests or amongst ourselves about telling our kids or rising talent, there's never a job you shouldn't try. You should be as utilitarian as you can. Go for everything. Ask where you're needed. Do what you got to do, because you never know how that's going to come back and serve you.
Yeah, and when you look at, when you look at a team, you really need to know what everybody else is doing and how your function fits into that bigger team.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, let's talk about as you became more recognized for your efforts. You certainly were part of the All-Atlantic Conference honors as a senior. You were inducted in 2018, just a couple of years ago, into the Wake Forest Sports Hall of Fame. What was that like?
It was humbling, really. The list of names of people that are in that group are amazing. Arnold Palmer to start there, right? I mean, and it just goes on and on. And so when they told me that I had been chosen to be in that group of people, it was very humbling, and I'm still really proud. It's one of my proudest achievements in athletics, for sure.
Can you kind of take us through, for folks who may not have been following your career and know, what's it like when you go through a Hall of Fame ceremony for your college? I mean, because this is the university you literally played for every Saturday. You were battling for recognition, for title, for fame. You were one of the players that people know. So what was that like to now then have the university come back and say, we feel you represent the best ideals of Wake Forest?
Well, I mean, obviously, the word humbling comes up every time. I can't think of a situation where you want to ask me about it, and I was not humbled. And then the nostalgia kicks in, right? You start thinking about all the stuff, all the teammates and all the people and coaches and shoot. I mean, especially for me, right? The academic advisors and tutors and all the people that helped me to get there, right? And then you just start, then gratitude kicks in, right? You just start how thankful you are for all those people that helped you get to the finish line. That you realize that it wouldn't be possible without any of those people. Because, I mean, when I was a dummy, when I was young, right? I mean, a lot of things that, I didn't know what I was doing. I knew I needed to make a good grade in that class, but did I really care about making a good grade? Probably not. And then, because it wasn't interesting to me, but I had to take the class. And so, I needed somebody to grab me by the ear and pull me down there and say, you need to do your work. And without those people, I mean, it would have been really, really tough for me. And so those people came to my mind when I found out and I got the news. And of course, all my teammates, I mean, how do you leave them out? Right. I mean, and I mean, I was a part of a really large class as a freshman, but, the guys that were there before me that mentored me when I got there, just the list is infinite. So, I mean, all those people, just humble and gratitude is really the two biggest emotions that I felt the whole time.
That's awesome.
So you mentioned that your dad and your grandfather both played at Tennessee. As you went through your college experience, did you find that you leaned on them for wisdom and insight as a college football player, and looked to them for?
Yeah, there's no question. So my dad was really good at reminding me of all the mistakes that he made to help me not make those same mistakes when I was in college. So, and my grandfather, see, when he was at Tennessee, now this is a story that my dad has told me, right? Because I never met my grandfather, but so if you guys go and research this and try to prove me wrong, there's a really good chance that this is.
It's a podcast. We don't do research.
But according to my dad, right, my grandfather went to Tennessee and then ended up going to war. And this was apparently about the time that General Neyland was at Tennessee, right? And everybody knows who that is, right? This is the stadium, right? So, and when they came back, he was just kind of like, you guys are too old. And so they all went up to like, I think Carson Newman comes to mind. I could be wrong, but they all came back from war and they wanted to come back to college and play football. And he was like, nah, we're good. And they all went up to Carson Newman and kicked the crap out of everybody they played up there and won a national championship or something like that. But he apparently, when my grandfather passed away, in the early 80s, apparently he was a high school football coach in East Tennessee for the longest time. Apparently the line was farther than anyone could see down the road, right? And he was instrumental to a lot of young people's lives that he coached, and apparently it was awesome. And so that was one of my, I would have liked to have been a part of his life, but that's okay. My dad carried a lot of that on and to me, but he went to Tennessee and he did all that stuff with my cousin Neil. He and my cousin, they were first cousins and they went there together. And the stories they tell are just ridiculous about college football in the early 70s.
They need to have him on.
No. First of all, the stories would be like he would tell you the truth. In his mind, it would be the truth, and then half the stuff he would tell you guys would just be so outrageous that you would be afraid to put it on the podcast.
We've had my dad on, and
yes,
we had a similar experience.
There's no filter. There's no filter.
He wasn't a football player.
Yeah. First of all, there's no filter, and secondly, the stories always get a little bit larger every time they're told.
Oh my gosh, he never tells the same story twice ever. And I've gotten older, and my mom will kind of, I've heard the same stories. I've heard the same stories for 40 years almost, right? And I've noticed that they've changed some. But
I've noticed my story starting to get there, so I guess I'm getting up in that range too.
It's not the details aren't important. Like it's
right.
It's a holistic view.
Look,
of what
it's
happened.
about the message, not necessarily the details, right? Don't get lost on the finer points of my story,
or the punchline, if you will. Well, Tyson, after you left Wake Forest and headed towards the NFL, tell us about that transition.
All right. Well, this is where like your mettle gets tested really the most because you come out of college and you think you're going to get drafted,
right?
And because that's what happens. You were all conference and all that stuff, and somebody should pick you up somewhere day 2 or. I never thought I was going to be a first day guy. Right? Back there it was a 3-day thing.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was a 2-day thing, and now it's a 3-day thing. But those rounds just kept going by, right? 5, 6, 7, and then it just never happened. And you see guys getting picked that you played against, and you watched on film, and they were good players, but you didn't really ever look at them and go, "Wow, that guy's
right,
special." And so when I didn't get picked, it's a hit to your ego for sure. Right? You just, what's happening?
That's your big that's your big WTF moment.
Yeah, I guess. I'm just everything just gets put on. It's just brought to a stop. You're just. You have to kind of reassess where you're at and take a really long, hard look at if, I'm like, well, maybe I'm not who I thought I was. And you have to kind of go from there. But luckily, when Troy Calhoun was the offensive coordinator at Wake my sophomore and junior year, I think, and he is now the head coach of Air Force, but he was at the time an offensive assistant in Denver, and so he, through that connection, I ended up in Denver on a undrafted rookie contract. Went through camp, I didn't make the team. Got cut at the end of camp, came home for a week or two, and then got picked up on the practice squad in New York. Went up there for a couple of weeks, got released, came back home, ended up on the practice squad in San Diego for a week, got released, came back home. And then for 3 weeks or so, I was ready to go do something else in my life. Right. And because it wasn't, I didn't have any, I didn't have any other options.
It had to be like disheartening. You're like jumping in and out of these different locker rooms, these different historic programs. I mean, you look at Denver, you look at New York, San Diego, you're thinking to yourself, okay, I'm bouncing back and forth. People want to at least bring me in for a little bit, but it's not working out. You've got to start thinking, what am I doing wrong?
Oh yeah. I mean, you start questioning whether or not you're good enough to be here, and then, I think it was about week 8, about midway through the season, 7, 8, 9, something like that. Denver called me back, and they had an opportunity. A spot opened up, and they brought me back and put me on the practice squad then. And so at least then I was like, well, they must think something of me because they had me before, and they wanted me to come back. So I felt like, well, maybe I'm going to be all right. And so I went up there and I stayed there the rest of the season, from week 8 all the way in through the playoffs. We went to Indy in the first round of the playoffs in 2004, and Manning torched us.
He does.
He torched a lot of people back in the day. But
former Tennessee guy, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Right. And so, but then the season was over, and then, like most after the year, no class to go to. You don't have a job to go to, and like, what do you do? And so you just load up the truck and drive back to Tennessee and go start visiting your friends, right, and doing the tour. And I don't know, one of those, I was on my way somewhere, and they called me and they said, "Hey, great news. We want you to be the next lineman to go to NFL Europe and come back and really produce for us." And so I was like, well, I guess I'll be in NFL Europe. Well, one of the year before, there was a team in Barcelona, the Barcelona Dragons, right? There's a beach there. It's beautiful. Spain's beautiful, right? And so that team moved from Barcelona to Hamburg. and look, I loved Hamburg, right? But it was no beach town.
It's not Barcelona.
No.
It's like moving to Detroit.
That's right. It'd be like if a team if the Dolphins moved to Detroit, and you were like, "Oh, last year we were in Miami, and now we're in Detroit." But Detroit's a fine town, but
it's not Miami.
If you were going to be somewhere for 4 months in the winter, it would be Miami, right?
Right.
Especially
playing an outdoor sport.
Yeah, that's right. So here we go, and all the coaches that were on the staff were on the staff in Barcelona the year before, and you could tell they were like, "Man, this is different."
I think "sucks" is the word you're looking for.
So here we are, and we're just it was Jack Bicknell was our head coach at the time, and they call him Cowboy Jack, and he was good people. But I put my head down through that, and got through there, and we played 8 games. I came home, and that was the funny part was that it was during the spring, and so I came home. I flew from Hamburg all the way to Denver, landed at the airport, and they took me directly to the doctor's office for a physical. And then the next day we had minicamp, and I woke up at like 2 a.m. in my hotel room because I don't even want to go into the time change and all that stuff. So I just laid there awake from 2 a.m. until it was time to go to the facility. And all those guys had been, drinking Mai Tais and doing all that stuff. So had been competing. And so like, I definitely was a little bit quicker than they were at the time, just for that camp. But they got into shape really quick and found their form really fast. And, but I did well. I thought that the experience in Europe really helped me. And then, I'd be darned if I didn't get hurt. Got hurt, missed 3 weeks of camp, I think.
Oh man.
And then, and so, if you're a guy like me trying to make a team, if you miss time like that, you have no chance. And they, they didn't keep me, but they kept a guy named Eric Pierce who ended up having a really great career. Started for Buffalo for a long time. So, I mean, it's not like they they got rid of me and kept him, but he was a really good football player. So, they didn't miss there. I mean, I couldn't practice. I couldn't do what I needed to do at the time. They did what they had to do for the team, and they made a good decision there because he's a really good player. But I was home again. This time I'm not healthy yet. And I went to Atlanta, and they wanted to take a look at me, and I got down there, and I still wasn't well, not 100%. And Les Snead, who is now the GM for the Rams, was in that role talking to me, and I said, "Look, I'm going to go back in 2 weeks. I'm going to be better. And I want to come back."
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Yeah, sure." And at the time, I thought, "Yeah, right, I'm done." And so, but I got well. We reached out to him again, and they said, "Yeah, come on." And they put me on the team, and the rest was history. Right, 8 years later, we were in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Well, one nice thing about the Falcons is often you don't have to be 100% to make the team. There have been times in Falcons history when you wondered where they got the players.
Well,
Wait a second, Walt. That's not nice.
I have been a Falcons fan all my life, and it has been painful.
So from 2004 to 2012, when I was there, 4, 5, 6. Well, 4 and 5 were okay. 6 and 7 were rough. Especially 7. 7 was a dark time. But 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, those were 5 of the best years that the Falcons have ever seen.
No doubt about it.
Right?
No doubt about it.
And I was an anchor, a part of it. I was a big part of that. And so I take pride in that. I mean, it was a lot of fun. We won a lot of games, and we were good. We were good.
Well, it was a great time to be a Falcons fan because every single week you felt like we were going to win. You go in to watch the game, you go to the stadium, and you feel like this is going to be a W for us.
Yeah,
that was a great time.
Ever came into the Georgia Dome that should have beat us. I mean, we were that talented, right?
Yeah.
I mean, with Roddy, and then we had Julio and Tony and Mike. Mike Turner was a monster, and then you throw Matt, and obviously Matt is a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. His numbers are just phenomenal. I mean, we were really good. So, I'm proud of those few years right there. That was a lot of fun too. And it was a great group of guys, great group of men, just really solid people.
When you come out of a camp with a team like that, what is the feeling in the locker room? Do y'all really have the sense that this is a special team? This is a team that could go all the way. How does it feel when you come out like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of grew because in 2008 was Matt's rookie season. I guess that's when that was.
I believe that's right.
Yeah. So we had been really poor the year before, so bad that our coach left. And then so we didn't know what was going to happen, right? Like here comes a new GM, here comes a new coach, and they go and they sign this running back, and then all of a sudden we were like good immediately. You add a running back and a quarterback, and all of a sudden, the first play of the season is a 70-yard touchdown pass or something crazy like that.
Right.
And then the very next play was like a 60-yard touchdown run. And it was all of a sudden it was 14-0, and we were like, "Holy cow, we haven't seen this in a long time."
Right.
And, we that was a good season. We came up a little short at the end, right? We went on the road to Arizona in the playoffs, I think, and they were they scored a couple of defensive touchdowns, and we just came up a little short. But that was the year they went to the Super Bowl, right? So they were obviously really good. So. And the next year we're thinking, well, let's roll, let's go. And then, so that was 9. I think we might have missed the playoffs that year. Matt hurt his toe, maybe.
That was the year that the Saints were 13-3 and they were just unstoppable.
That's right.
That's right. That might have been the year they won it, right?
Maybe. In 2009?
Yeah.
I'd have to look that up. I just know they were like 13-3 in
they
the.
were good, but we might have missed out. I think that was the year that Matt got hurt, because in 10 we were the number 1 seed.
Right. In 2010 you became 13-3.
That's right. Well, yeah, that's right. So we were 13-3, and all of a sudden we thought, wow, we really thought we were going to win. Like when Green Bay came in there, we didn't think that they had it. We'd already beat them once in the regular season, and then Aaron Rodgers was just nuts. Right? He just picked us apart. There was nothing we could do. Like Coach Smith and those guys had blitzes coming. They schemed them up perfectly. The guys were coming free, and he was just making a miss and throwing 30-yard touchdown passes. Right? I mean, there's nothing.
Well, and it has to be tough to defend a guy like that because Aaron Rodgers is one of those rare talents that when he is on, he is just phenomenal. I mean, he's unstoppable.
Yeah, no, it was special. I mean, I hated watching it at the time, but now that in retrospect, it was pretty impressive.
You know, the thing about being a Falcons fan, which both Walt and I are, you can't imagine the number of like AT&T dollars that are being spent on the two of us texting back and forth watching on a Sunday. Every single time, I swear, the Falcons have the makeup. It's that year that one team has that standout year that's just that one notch above. I'm like, when's it our turn? I want our team to have that standout. Like every year, it's solid. Like you made a comment about Matt Ryan. I get in arguments all the time with callers. I'm like, Matt Ryan is not on the defense. You look at his offensive numbers. He even did a great job the season prior to COVID and even this past year. And it's a defensive problem, not an offensive problem. Why do you want to replace the quarterback? He's still phenomenal.
Look, guys, I'm not. It'd be hard for me to take anybody else other than that guy right there. And like I've been on the field with him. I know what he's like to play with, and like I'd take him, right? But it'd be hard for me to pass up on playing with him again.
Well, and it seems like he doesn't just have the talent, but he has a really good football mind, and he seems to be a good leader.
He is. He's all those things. He's there aren't many like him, right? No. And I mean that's why. I mean everyone talks about how all these teams are like they're a quarterback away from being good. Well, like some teams are something else away from being good because like that ain't the problem in Atlanta.
Right.
So now is he getting a little long in the tooth? Yeah, I'm sure he is. But like, is he done like being a top tier quarterback in the NFL? No. I mean, no way.
Well, look at what's happening in the NFL. Look at what's happening in the 21st century between training and the rules are tightening up for safety. I mean, you've got Drew Brees, who only just retired, and you have Tom Brady, who's still hanging on. You've got quarterbacks that can go longer if they can stay healthy. There's no more of this. You're done at 30, you're done at 32 or 33. You can go a lot longer than that.
Well, I mean, how many games has he missed in the past 5 years? 1, 2, something like that?
Yeah, not many.
Right. So Matt Schaub had the best job ever.
Collect a paycheck.
It's funny. I think I sent a text to Alan right at the end of the season, and I was like, wait, Matt Schaub is still on the roster?
No, he retired.
Yeah, he has retired. He had to be in the NFL forever, but you're right. Like, he probably hasn't taken a live snap in
he played it. Like he did have, I think he had to start. I mean, that's his job. And I mean, that's he did a great job.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing harder than being the backup to an elite quarterback.
Right.
Well, Matt Schaub was an elite quarterback at one time, right? I mean, he was special in Houston. They had something really special down there, and he did a great job. And I mean, congratulations to him for parlaying that into a pretty sweet gig at the end.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask this from a fan's perspective, because a lot of times the fans think they know everything. You hear them all the time. Social media allows them to have a platform. What was it like when you guys know how good Matt Ryan is and you hear the fan base calling for, we need a new quarterback. We can't win without a new I'm like, you're not looking at his numbers. How can you be a fan and not look at his numbers?
The only number that they care about is the W's and the L's, guys.
Right.
And so they've been told for the longest time that the quarterback's the most important position on the football team, and it probably is. But it doesn't. A quarterback does not make a team. And so, they basically just want to start over. Is what those guys are saying,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, when they say when they want to get a new quarterback, they want to start over. They don't think that. Yeah, they probably think that Matt is still elite and can still get it done, but are they going to be able to take the roster they have and compete to win a Super Bowl? I don't know. So they just want to start over. You want to start from scratch. You're looking for, lightning in a bottle, basically.
Well, and that is frustrating sometimes when you see a guy with that kind of talent and you think, man, we should have a couple of trophies sitting in the trophy case, and it just hasn't come together. And I understand people wanting to, clean house everything, but you have to look at that talent and say, where are you going to find another Matt Ryan? Where are you going to find another guy with that package of skills? And when really, like you said, I mean, we could be a tight end or a wide receiver away from moving from, 9-6 to, being an elite team. So I would hate to see, particularly at this point in his career, I'd hate to see them go out and find somebody else.
Right. Well, I mean, there's no telling what they're going to do, guys. But,
True.
But I can take it now that if they do move on from him, somebody somewhere is going to take it.
Oh yeah, his career is not over yet.
Oh, somebody somewhere is going to, say we have an amazing defense, and we just that guy right there is the missing piece. And so, I mean, it'll probably, if it does happen, if and when it does happen, and he can still play, it'll be the best thing that ever happened to him, right? Because he'll go somewhere, ready made to win right now.
Well, a lesser known time when that happened is a Tom Brady going to Tampa.
That's right.
And, when your best talent goes out the door like that, it can really cost you. And
and then you got half the team opting out of the season up there like they did. It doesn't. I mean, the margins of success are so thin that when you've got guys like that, you lose guys to injuries and all that stuff. But when they don't even come in the door from the beginning of the season, because of COVID, I mean, it's tough.
That is tough. Yeah.
As we begin to wind down, I have to get what we're thinking about the NFL, and I know Walt, you got a follow up. But what I think sometimes a lot of fans forget, the difference between the worst team in the NFL and the best team in the NFL is a razor thin margin. I mean, these are athletes at the peak of performance. They're being monitored all the time. They're being coached all the time. These are the best of the best. And it bothers me when people don't understand the work and the effort and the fact that sometimes things just don't bounce your way. We're a good team in Atlanta. We got to get it in the right order. But, I think people are they're fans, and I guess fan is short for fanatical, and I guess that explains it all.
Well, I mean, most of these games that you watch are decided by like 5 plays,
right?
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, it's just unfortunately Atlanta, those 5 plays have gone the wrong way here recently. But I mean, you just think about 2 of the plays last year that just were clearly should have never happened, right? You got the onside kick against Dallas. Got the touchdown against Detroit, where, I can't even imagine how hard it is to be running as fast as I can, as hard as I can to get somewhere. And then right before I get there, like, wait, no, stop. Right? So then he falls into the end zone and then they go down. I mean, like those 2 plays, I mean, it's just crazy. It's just, what do you do with something like that? It's just, is it luck? Is it lack of preparation? Is it just dumb? I don't know. But I mean, yeah, it's hard to swallow, especially as a fan, because also I am now as a fan, right? So, I mean, it's hard for me to swallow when I'm watching. You just kind of put your hand in your head, shake and look at the ground and just go, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. But I mean, if you're on that team and because I mean, those guys, it's their job, it's their livelihood. They don't care about where they draft, with their draft positioning and all that other nonsense. They want to win because they want to continue their career.
Right.
And so when it doesn't work out like that, and it's just like things that are so unbelievable really happen, it's just a head scratcher.
Well, you made the transition a few years ago from the NFL into the post NFL world. How has that transition been for you?
Well, it's been different. So my wife's family has a staffing company in North Carolina, and she wanted to come back and be a part of that. And so we found a piece of land. We built a house, bought some cows. So now I'm a rancher now. And I wouldn't do anything else. I love it. I love being outside. I love working on fence and cutting up trees and riding tractors and doing all that stuff. I'm having a great time. And she works her butt off, and I make sure that, well, most of the time I make sure that the kids get where they need to be, and it's a lot of fun.
So how was the transition from being in the NFL and being in that highly competitive environment to being Mr. Mom and Mr. Cattle Rancher?
No, it was okay. It wasn't that bad. I found a nice little lunchtime basketball game. I would try to go and play at noon for about an hour, and that got my competitive juices going. Got that competitiveness out, and then I would just be right back into it. I even coached a little high school football. Like right now, I'm coaching my son at middle school. So that's frustrating. Oh my gosh. I mean, like I've had a few moments where I have to go sit in my closet and just stare at the wall and think about the type of person I want to be and the type of person I just was when the way I react to things. And
I think all of us as fathers can relate to that.
Yeah, I've been there.
But not even with my son, just these other people's kids, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, how could I? I mean, I can't make it any clearer or any simpler. Yeah, what are we doing? And so, I had better success at the high school level than I've had at the middle school level for sure. We went to the state championship game a couple years ago. Of course, we got beat, but we were pretty good. But like I'm middle school, so I'm struggling. This is my first attempt at middle school football. It's a struggle.
Yeah, a friend of mine was a high school coach, and then he moved for 1 year to coach middle school basketball and then back to high school. And he said that year of coaching middle school basketball was like coaching the Three Stooges.
Yeah.
And he said it was just utter mayhem. Nobody listened to anything. It was just an insane asylum.
Yeah, it's not much different for middle school football. But hey, but this is my first year of middle school football, so we're only playing 5 games. We're playing in the spring. So luckily, right about the time I get these kids where I think they need to be, the season will be over. Perfect. Then they'll move on to high school and I have to start over. So that'll be good.
So what position does your son play?
Playing tight end right now.
Okay.
But he doesn't know it yet, but he'll end up being a tackle at some point. he still believes that he might catch the ball, right? And that he's fast and athletic, but
he's got the tackle skills and genes.
It's just a matter of time, guys.
But I say this a lot. I've done a lot of theater. I've done a lot of film. I've been on the radio. I still say my greatest role I've ever played is being a dad. And I still, to this day, cherish every second I had with my girls on the soccer field to practice. It may not have felt like fun at the time, but I'm on the other side. All my girls are out. My last one's in college right now. My wife and I are kind of empty nesters. And those are the memories we look back on now. And we thought, look how miserable we're sitting out here in the sleet in a soccer game on a February start of the season. But now we're like, I wish we had a soccer game to go to. You know what I mean?
Well, a lot of people got a glimpse of that, right, this past year. And they wished they could go to a soccer game, not because their kids had moved out, but because their kids were at home.
Yes, sir.
So we used to complain. We'd say, golly, like every weekend we're somewhere all the time, all day. We're driving 2 hours to go play basketball or whatever. And then last spring we were like, man, I'd love to go drive 2 hours and go to a basketball game.
Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah. That perspective hit hard.
It did. You know, so so to this day, I mean, and it's not like that was, you know, that long ago, but we've started back here kind of opening things up and doing more of that. And so I haven't even thought for a second about complaining about having to go to Winston to a basketball game.
No.
Yeah, no kidding.
We're going to play 3 games in Winston all day Saturday. That's fine. That's better than sitting on this couch.
You got that right.
All day long, you know, so
have your kids gotten to an age where they realize what you did for a living?
I mean, my older kids have, right? I mean, my daughter is 14 and my oldest son is 13. And so they do, but not like Todd McClure's kids, right? When Todd McClure was a center in Atlanta, his kids were my kid's age and he was still playing.
Oh,
that would be really, you know, they would really get it then, you know, but they do, they understand. I think they think it's cool. They might not, I don't know. You know, it's hard to tell with these kids what's cool or not, but
at the end of the day, you're just dad.
At the end of the day, I'm just dad, right? They don't look at me like that. Especially my younger two, they don't care. My youngest daughter doesn't care at all about what I did or how big I am. Mm-hmm. She is the boss. She's 5 years old, and there's only one person on the planet that can talk to me the way that she talks to me and get away with it.
Oh, that sounds so familiar.
Yes, sir. I've got one of those.
On this planet, they could say the things to me that she says to me and get away with it. And I don't understand. And sometimes I go into my closet again, which I go there. And I have to just I just have to look at the ground and I have to say, what the hell?
That's awesome. You know what, though? We all have one of those kids who just knows how to turn the knife and say the right word.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing, right? I tell Kendra all the time, I'll say, what happened? She'll just look at me with this look, and she's just, that child is exactly like you are. It's always the one that's just like you, right?
That's the problem.
Apparently, we're identical. She's a female version. She's a 5-year-old female version of me. So I don't know what that means for her future, but
or for yours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Right. I mean, a lot of calls from the principal.
Yeah, I can relate. My 15-year-old.
Yeah. Right. But I do the same thing. I got a 13-year-old son in 7th grade, right? I'm getting grades. So I'm thinking, did you try to get this grade? So, ask him about it. Like, hey, so what's up with this? Like, this is probably the worst grade I've ever seen. He just shrugged his shoulders like, I don't know.
No.
Like, okay.
You realize you could have scored higher if you had not even turned it in, right? I mean, what did you do?
If it were multiple choice, you would have had to go know the answers and pick the wrong answer. Just to see how poorly you could get.
You know what? Every one of us has had a kid who's done that or done that sideways for like a semester or something. You're just going, what the hell's wrong with what? Who are you?
That's right.
Yeah, my oldest is very, very smart. She is very intelligent, and I remember she came home in middle school and handed me one of her tests that she had not done well on, and I'm reading over it, and I was like, "What is that word? What did you write there?" And she was like, I'm not real sure. So that's why that F is on that paper. This is not going to happen again.
They're just not paying attention. Their mind is on something else at the time.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you can't get a 30 and then turn around and get 100. and like something doesn't add up, right? They're like, when that test came out and that teacher put it on their desk, their mind was so far away,
right,
thinking about God knows what, and they just did not care one bit about what was on that piece of paper. They didn't care at all, and so which is frustrating. Right? So,
well, I can remember. I remember a couple times in high school and once in college, looking at a test, and I might as well have been looking at hieroglyphics. Yeah. I had no idea what was going on. And so I can kind of relate. but it's still, as a parent, it's frustrating because you just know that they're smarter than this.
It's a little bit of effort. Just a little bit.
Just a little. So, yeah. And Tyson, I know that a few years ago when you and I met, your family was in the middle of something that my family has also gone through. We adopted our oldest two children. How has that been with your family? And can you tell us just a little bit of that story?
Well, guys, so the kids made it really easy for us, right? And so my oldest two, when they were 3 and 4 years old, all they really wanted was a mom and a dad, right? They didn't really understand. They lived with my mom. They didn't have what the kids at preschool had, right? And they could, and they were little. They were 3 and 4 years old, but somehow they knew, right? And so when they moved in with us, we never said, hey, this is mom, this is dad. We just started calling each other mom and dad around them. And then it happened like that. And then we were mom and dad. And then they never looked back. I mean, they know that they're adopted. But we, at least I hope that we've never treated them any differently than we've treated the other. Well, the other two are a lot more, they get away with more, but I think it's just because we're tired. Not because of their situation or whatever, but I mean, it's just been like unimaginable without them. Even with the English grades and and the boyfriends and the texting and the ridiculousness. Right?
Yes,
it wouldn't be. Life wouldn't be the same without them. Wouldn't change a thing. Wouldn't go back. It's just that they are my kids. Yeah. I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, I've been taking care of them since the day they were born. Just because they weren't on it, just because it wasn't on a piece of paper, right? So, and that's different than a lot of other people's situations when they try to adopt. But it's not going to change, right? Like it's. Like you're gonna love them the same as you love anybody else.
Look, I'm a big fan being in a blended family. I had my two girls. I had custody of my two girls. Never thought I was gonna find anybody again. My wife had her two girls. Then she was like, I'm never going back into a situation that I was in again. And don't ever say never, because that's exactly when two people are gonna run into each other. Right. My girls, they don't call me Alan. They call me Dad. Like. I raised them. They know that. And they understand they have a biological component, and they understand that, but they also know who was there for every skin knee, every teaching him to ride a bike or to drive a car or the bad grade or the boyfriend.
And never, ever, it wouldn't matter which one of the four that somebody put up on a mantle and said, pick one. You can never pick one.
No, you can't.
Yeah, right.
No.
It would never, and that's just reality of it. After a while, like, they're just yours,
right?
And you treat them just like they would, and then that's just.
Yeah, a friend of mine did ask me if I treat my older two daughters differently because they're adopted, and I said, well, I treat them differently, but it's not because they're adopted. I treat them differently because they're different people.
and so, I don't treat them all the same at all, ever. I've never treated them all the same because they're not the same,
right? So, you just treat them like they're your kids.
Right. There's a difference between treating them identical versus loving them identically. I love them all equally. But each one of them, I have to figure out what's the right punishment. If I tell my one daughter who loves to read to go to her room, that's like a woohoo. I can't send her to her room. I got to make her mow the lawn.
Don't take your 9-year-old son's iPad away or the house looks good.
But I mean, I think that's an important thing to remember, and especially for folks who are either considering that they may have found themselves in a position with a child that they're not sure that they are ready for, that there are families who they're not going to think of that child as somebody's other child. Like, they want that child for their own, and vice versa. You don't think of that as some other child. You think of it as your own. And I think the adoption process, that needs to be talked about more.
Here's the thing. Like when Ethan and Alyssa moved in with us, we had only been married for like 2 months, maybe less, maybe a month.
Right? Oh, wow.
And so we definitely weren't ready for them to come live with us. I mean, like, nobody's ever really ready. Even if you have a kid, a biological kid,
Right.
That kid's coming. But are you ever really ready? No. Yeah, and so that's just people's insecurities, right? It's that doubt in their mind that, can I do this? Can I, take care of this person,
this life,
and get them to the finish line? And no one knows the answer, and no one is ever ready. And you just kind of, it's like jumping out of an airplane, right, with a parachute on. I wouldn't, but you got to do it. If you're supposed to jump, you got to jump, pull the cord, and go. So
buckle your belt and hang on.
Right. It only lasts about 22 years.
That's the longest parachute jump ever.
But all right, so message-wise, just for our audience, if there are people who are listening that they either are considering adoption, or if they're on the other side, they've got a situation. I mean, I'm assuming you're a huge proponent for looking at the different services and options for life.
Yeah. Look, so it's not going to ever be the same for everybody. And there is no cookie cutter answer here, right? So it's going to be different for everyone. But just, if you're thinking about doing that with your child and giving it up for adoption, like, there are people out there, good people, that really want to raise a baby. And so, if you think that that's the way to go, then it's a really viable option and a good one. But, at the other hand, like, there are people out there who have a lot of babies who can't take care of them. They keep having them. And it's just like, keep banging your head against the wall. So, I mean, there's a flip side to everything.
Oh no! If this was an easy problem, it would have been solved a long time ago.
There's no question.
Yes,
there's no
absolutely.
Question. And so, there is no right answer, but just know that if you're struggling with what to do, there are ways. There are people. If you're sitting there and you're thinking, I know I can't take care of this baby, somebody will. Somebody.
Right. Yeah. And think about the kid first. Think about what's best for that child. And, that's the key, I think, to that decision making is, if I can't take care of the child, what's the best route to get that child taken care of? And,
right.
Finding a loving family to do that. So,
there's no doubt. I mean, there's and it's so expensive. Yeah. But like you said, that's a big part. That's a big obstacle to get over. There are people who can afford to raise a child. They can't afford the obscene amount of money that it takes to adopt one. And so that's obviously
at the very least, even if you're listening to this podcast, you're listening to this episode, and you're so moved, you may not be in a position of or thinking that this applies to you, but you could certainly reach out to your local state representatives, your congressperson, your senator, and say, look, what are we doing in our state, wherever you're listening, to make it easier for willing families, loving families to be able to have that connection? I mean, that's what they're there for. Reach out to them. So many people, I think, are afraid to reach out to their politicians because they think it's what they think they see on TV. Your local legislators, your state legislators are probably a little bit different than what you're seeing at the federal level. Reach out to them and find out, well, what is your governor doing? What is your state legislature doing to make adoptions easier, safe, secure, and streamlined, but easier for people to be able to find those matches?
Right. Absolutely.
Well, Tyson, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your time with us and sharing a little bit about your story and your family.
Absolutely, guys. I enjoyed it. Anytime. I don't know what else I could possibly talk about, but if you guys ever need me to come back on and talk about anything else, I'd love to.
Awesome.
I really appreciate it.
Tyson, it was a pleasure to meet you, even though it was virtual. I'm totally serious. I mean, you may think I would come up and drive up for a weekend if you need me or vice versa, but no matter what, having been 4 girls ahead of you already out and graduating, let me know if you got any questions. I don't think I have any answers, but I've lived through it.
Yeah, we'll pick a weekend. I'll have a bunch of cows that need work and vaccinated and everything, and you can help me there. And then
perfect. That would be perfect.
I'll drive a car and be perfect.
I would love that. Anyway, stay in touch. I know you know Walt very well. Walt and I are good friends, and we've been doing this podcast now. This is our 4th year, and the fact that we changed it into a talk format has allowed us to meet so many really cool people with awesome stories to tell. And thank you for sharing yours.
No problem, guys. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Thank you, Tyson.
Take care. Bye-bye. Let's go to our next segment, a segment we like to call...
God, what is this? Stop it! I didn't get me out of this hell!
Well, this movie fits it perfectly. This week, our listeners subjected me to the 2016 Scott Wheeler classic, Attack of the Killer Donuts. Well, here's how IMDb summarizes it. A chemical accident turns ordinary donuts into bloodthirsty killers. That is pretty much it. That is the essence of the plot. It is basically the whole movie wrapped up into about as short and deep as a review as you can get. One thing I kind of found a little fascinating about this is one of the writers and producers is a guy named Chris DeChristopher. And he is known for a number of things, like the Da Vinci Co-Ed.
Oh, wait a minute. That sounds like one of those after hours videos.
Wait, you mean like a cleavage field? The Devil Wears Nada?
Oh, my Lord.
Busty Cops Go to Hawaii? Busty Cops and the Jewel of Denial? But then he gets into really his deep work, Alan. Piranha Man versus Werewolf Man. Howl of the Piranha.
Well, that was a stretch, at least in a new direction.
This is true. I can't even pronounce this. Sharkanus Women's Prison Massacre and General Hospital. So he he was a producer on one episode of General Hospital. So he has done some real classic work, and of course, Attack of the Killer Donuts may be the peak of his work. He was joined in this nightmare by two other folks. One guy named Nathan Dillon. The only credit on IMDb Nathan Dillon has is as a writer of Attack of the Killer Donuts.
Oh, okay.
So he, I don't know, sells insurance or repairs cars or something.
Wait a second, just the basic premise. I wanted to go back to it. Whereas in Tim Burton's Batman with Jack
Nicholson, this is
Nicholson,
gonna be a stretch.
He falls into a vat of chemicals, but he's a living human being who becomes psychotic as a result. We're supposed to assume that an inanimate object falling in similar chemicals become animated objects?
Not sure I see the problem here, Alan.
Okay, I want to make sure I understood the plot. I want to make sure I'm up. I mean, I was falling behind for a second there.
I mean, remember, this is all that really happens, and then they go on rampages and kill people.
Oh, wait a minute. Now, like on the Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, at least they were huge.
Oh, no, these are like going to Dunkin' Donuts or Krispy Kreme or whatever your donut place of choice is, and this is what you get. It is just a donut. They all go crazy. They multiply like wild, and they chase people down and murder them.
Like small donuts.
Yeah, just regular old donuts. But one small donut can do a lot of damage, Alan.
Apparently, I'm lacking in my donut, wildlife kingdom phylum. So, how does this happen?
Well, there's this chemical accident.
Well, I heard that.
And the mad professor, the uncle of the main character of the movie, is just messing around with chemicals in his basement, and his nephew works at a donut shop, and the two come in contact, and the donuts go mad and start eating people.
Wait. Where do the donuts put the flesh of said victims? They don't have stomachs.
Donut. I don't know, Alan. I would have to say that when you say that there is a writer to this movie, that is a stretch.
That's a loosely held title.
It is a loosely held title. There was very little forethought. There was. I mean, even to say that there was a plot to this movie, it is really hard to validate. I mean, obviously, there are donuts that go nuts and eat people, but
of course, I hear about it all the time on the news.
and they really they attack people is what happens here.
They swarm them
donuts
like ants.
attack people. So that's why I'm kind of the majority of my review ended up being looking at the IMDb pages of the actors in this movie because I can't really say anything else without giving away the ending where the donuts have eaten a lot of people, including most of the stars of the movie. Yeah, I mean, there isn't really a whole lot here. So, now, I think the one thing that I can say critically about this movie, and to make it sound like I, actually watched it, it was an hour. It was 89 minutes, so it's just under an hour and a half. That was probably about 45 minutes too long. So it really kept dragging. You kept thinking, oh, thank God, I'm almost to the end. And then it would start up again. It follows kind of some of the tropes of some of the other of these types of movies. But I would say that you probably don't want to waste your time on this one. I would say really like Lime Apocalypse is probably better. We haven't reviewed that one yet, but that's better in this genre.
So are you keeping track? We talked about that in one of our episodes a couple of weeks back about ranking them and how they fell. We had Killer Pinata, we had Killer Couch, we had Velocipaster. So are you going to keep a running, like where these rank in terms of bad movies reviewed this season? More work?
Well, no, I don't mind the work. It's just that they suck so bad. It's hard to really put them in an order. Now, okay, as far as watchability goes, my daughter has all of a sudden fallen in love with these movies, and so every night she's putting a different one on. But, this one is hard to watch. It's not very entertaining. The acting is terrible. It's not well written. It's not real creative. I mean, I would think that Killer Sofa would really be a little bit more creative and a little bit more suspenseful than this. This movie is just not good. I mean, it's I think it got like a 3.7 on IMDb. That was generous. It was hard to watch. It's boring. It's predictable. It's repetitive, and it's pretty sad. So even the concept, you look at it, you go, oh, that's ridiculous. Maybe it's at least funny or entertaining. It is not funny or entertaining. It isn't even like a parody of itself. It's just kind of ridiculous and not great. So,
by way of comparison, it's 6 minutes longer, but you should go revisit the 1988 remake of The Blob, which has gotten a lot of love, even though it failed when it first came out. Practical effects wise, it's one of those movies where you're like, okay, a gelatinous bunch of goo is eating people, but they do it right.
Yeah. It's actually suspenseful and has some good acting. It's actually a good movie. The Blob is a good movie. This is not a good movie. So even as bad movies go, this is not a good one. It's a terrible B or C or D movie. Now, one highlight that I will point out is there's an actor in this named Michael Swan. Michael Swan has 89 credits to his name. He has been on a ton of bad stuff lately, but earlier in his career, he was in The Bold and the Beautiful, As the World Turns. I mean, he was on I want to say it was like 100 episodes of As the World Turns. And so he is actually a legitimate actor. He was also on a show called Santa Barbara. And, somebody else had talked about the show Riptide at some point. He was on that. He was on Hardcastle and McCormick, Simon and Simon, TJ Hooker.
So one of those working actors that every now and then has to take an indie film just to keep the bills paid.
That's right. And he was even, and I'll wrap with this one on this movie, he was in The Incredible Hulk and MASH, two of my favorite 70s shows. So this guy's a legitimate actor and he plays a police officer in this movie, and even he couldn't salvage this burning nightmare.
Well, taking a look at some of the names that I know you and I enjoy, and of course our good buddy BK would be going nuts over for his guest appearances, but Chips, the Rockford Files.
Yep.
As I'm going through, like he was in Galactica 1980, which was that horrible sequel to Battlestar Galactica.
Yep.
Falcon Crest, Trapper John MD, The A-Team, TJ Hooker, Simon and Simon. I mean,
the Rockford Files.
All those shows I watched growing up. Even Magnum PI is in this list, and he was in Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives.
That's right. That's right. So this guy's actually a legitimate good actor.
Or at least a working actor. He's getting gigs in legitimate things. How about that? He's an actor that gets gigs in legitimate projects.
Well, I think his turning point was in 2010 when he was in Dino Croc versus Super Gator.
Oh, he opened up a brand new avenue of
That's
roles.
Right. And he has not been in anything. Oh, I take it back. After that, he was in Captain America, the First Avenger, where he had a voice part playing the Dodgers announcer, and he was uncredited for that, but he was actually in it.
I don't know if that really counts, but okay.
Yeah. And then the next actual thing he was in was a TV show called Piranaconda. So the arc for him is not great.
No, I guess at some point you do what you got to do to keep paying the bills.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. And this, I don't know how much he got paid for it, but it was probably not worth it.
All right.
Now, I assume there's probably like an all-you-can-eat donut clause in that contract, but
when we wrap with the film, the crew gets the donuts split up evenly.
Well, the bad part was most of the donuts were cartoons, so didn't really work out that great.
Oh wow!
But this was kind of a tough one to review because it was so bad. So I don't recommend it. If you get a wild hair and want to watch it, that's on you. But you cannot blame me or the Wilder Ride or any of the subsidiaries of the Wilder Ride Incorporated, as you have been duly warned.
All right. Well, then let's go ahead and move into our next segment, a place that we like to go scour the internet for news because we know once we read it online, we know
it's no bullshit.
Okay, so the first story that we have here today, this one's a little scary, Alan. Military training drone washes ashore on Florida beach.
Oh my God, I saw pictures of this. People were playing with it.
Yes, it's a big orange drone. It's obviously a military plane, and people are out in the surf pushing this thing around.
Check see if it's got guns.
Yeah.
Let me hear your guns, 1941.
Yeah. Is Steve Austin in there? So this comes from surprisingly from Pittsburgh's Action News 4. Beachgoers in the Boynton Beach area in Florida made quite the discovery Friday morning. A military training drone that had washed ashore.
Holy cow.
The drone was found on the beach near Orange Ridge Hammock Park at around 7:30 a.m. According to officials, the training drone belongs to the United States Air Force. Orange Ridge police investigators say a bystander saw the drone on the beach and called 911. The police department contacted the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, which sent its explosives ordnance unit to check out the drone. The sheriff's office determined the drone was safe and posed no threat to the public. U.S. Air Force leaders told sister station WPBF in Florida the drone was shot down as part of a training exercise out of Tyndall Air Force Base in Panama City, Florida. It's unclear when the training exercise occurred. The Air Force leaders say the vast majority of these drones are picked up by military boats, but occasionally one of them is not found.
It's no bullshit.
Oh, wow. I'm thinking that's actually their plant story. They don't want to admit that one of their drones ditched in the ocean. They no. We shoot these down all the time.
Oh, this is normal. This happens every day.
By the thousands, so it's occasional one gets away from us.
Yeah, this was the only one that we've had a problem with.
The only one that I know of, unless the Iraqis say we shot one down too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess they could still claim credit for that. But yeah, I would say just rule of thumb, if a military jet is laying on the beach, probably go the other way.
All right. I've got another story here. This one actually from our own home state of Georgia. Hey, Walt, Are you a coin collector?
I actually am.
Oh, good. Because there's a guy that we know that is in Peachtree City that has a ton of pennies you might want to go through. you want to hear the story?
Oh, this should be good.
Yeah, the Peachtree City man says that the penny pile was a result of a bitter feud over a final paycheck from a previous job. The man was eventually paid in pennies dumped in a pile in his driveway.
Oh, my gosh.
All happened to Andreas Flatten, who submitted his 2-week notice back in November. Now, apparently, that did not make his boss very happy. He said he froze and stared at me like for a minute. I remember this so clearly, he said. He got up, put his hands on his head, walked out the door, and just disappeared for an hour when he put in his notice.
Brutal.
He had worked for Walker Luxury Auto Works in Peachtree City for a year and had known the owner for 8 years. According to Flatten, the constant turnover and the toxic work environment took its toll. Flatten returned his work uniform, washed and boxed with a letter explaining why he was leaving. He was to be paid his final paycheck in January of 2021. When it never came, he said that the boss accused him of damages. He said, quote, I honestly at this point never expected him to pay. It took over 5 months and a call to Georgia's Department of Labor before he finally did cough up the $915. He just chose to be the ultimate asshat and pay it in pennies.
What a jackass.
That comes out to 504 pounds of pennies.
Oh, my gosh.
I have no idea where to put them. I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea how to get money from all those pennies, said Flatten. Online criticism is calling the penny dump petty. Flatten had the pennies in his garage inside of a large wheelbarrow. They're he said it's a brand spanking new wheelbarrow, but it's flat to the brim because of the weight of the pennies. But here's the thing. When they drop the pennies off, whatever vehicle that they used to dump the pennies, before they put them in his driveway, they covered them in some kind of oil, which means until you clean every single individual penny, you can't claim the money anywhere.
It's no bullshit.
Wow, what a jerk.
There is your asshat tard of the week.
No kidding. What is the name of the business?
The name of the business is Walker Luxury Auto Works in Peachtree City.
Wow. Okay. Wow, man. What the boss of the year right there.
There you go. Yeah, and here's a guy who wanted to put his 2 weeks notice because it was a toxic work environment. I think that was proven.
That definitely has been confirmed.
So are you suggesting that you decided to leave this job because of a boss that might be somewhat petty and or somehow take it against you if you do something against him? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah. No doubt. Well, turning to a happier story, a Florida story that also involves alcohol.
Oh, yay.
DUI suspect had vodka stash under her bra.
Ooh, nice. I love vodka.
The great folks at the Smoking Gun. March 19th, after transporting a Florida woman to jail following her arrest on DUI charges at a McDonald's drive-thru.
Wait.
Cops discovered that she had an 8-pack of vodka stuffed in her bra, according to an arrest report.
Congratulations on your discovery.
What are those, like those little mini airplane servings?
Right, exactly. Responding to a 911 call about a drunk female that is driving all over the drive-thru, police Monday night found Brandy Stanley, 31, behind the wheel of a Pontiac SUV idling outside the McDonald's in Lady Lake, a town about 60 miles from Orlando. Stanley, who had been eating in the vehicle, smelled of alcohol, had glassy eyes, and her face was flushed, an officer noted.
What's going on out there?
Additionally, when Stanley exited her car at the cops' request, she swayed from side to side. After refusing to perform a field sobriety test, Stanley was handcuffed and placed in the rear of the police car. En route to jail, Stanley reportedly uttered, "Just take me home. Let's forget this." And "I'm so stupid. I should know better."
Two things that are probably going to not help your case.
Yeah, her defense attorney is shuddering at that one. Upon arriving at the county lockup, Stanley continued to yell and scream at cops, resulting in several deputies assisting in removing the defendant from the vehicle. It was only after Stanley was extracted from the cruiser that police located an 8-pack of Deep Eddy vodka under her bra. One bottle was missing from the pack, cops reported. While court filings did not indicate the size of the individual bottles, Physics dictate that they were 50 millimeter nips, the shot size serving associated with airplane imbibing. Pictured above, which you need to go look at the story again on thesmokinggun.com, Stanley was charged with a pair of misdemeanor DUI counts. After a night in jail, Stanley was released from custody after posting $2,000 bail. She is scheduled for an April 19th plea negotiation conference in circuit court.
It's no bullshit.
Wow. Look, I don't mind sneaking a little shot or two inside the movie theater to make that vanilla Coke just a little bit more fun. But 8 inside your bra? Do I need to ask, what did she look like?
Well, I will point you to thesmokinggun.com to draw your own conclusions because I am not going to get canceled, Alan.
Okay. Point taken. Well, I've got the final story. This one has to be Mom of the Year.
Oh, gosh.
Do you know what deep fakes are? Have you heard about what deep fake technology is?
Yes, I have.
You know, when you take a person's face and hide it or using CGI or other kind of techniques, make it look like that's like you could paint it on some other body to make it look like that's them.
Yes, like you put my face on Schwarzenegger.
Right, exactly. It's a deep fake. And if you do it really well, people think, well, oh my God, I never saw Schwarzenegger pound an entire pizza, you know?
Right, exactly.
Well, it's good for parents to support their children in their hobbies and goals, and some might even call it a requirement. I mean, we're all good parents here, right? But as with so many other things, sometimes things go just one step too far. A Philadelphia woman has been charged with misdemeanor counts of cyber harassment of a child.
Ooh.
She distributed doctored, deepfake videos and photos of her daughter's cheerleading rivals, reported the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Oh, no.
Rafaela Spone, age 50, was arrested back at the beginning of March after sending videos supposedly depicting her victims in indecent situations.
Yikes.
Her daughter, along with the harassed girls, are all members of a traveling cheerleading troupe called Victory Vipers based in Doylestown. Spone is charged with sending the pictures and videos anonymously to the targeted girls and several cheerleading coaches. The messages showed the girls engaging in compromising behavior, including drinking, smoking, and, Walt, the part that makes me gag, partying naked.
Yikes.
In addition, Spone allegedly wrote text messages to her victims. The text included such lovely sentiments as telling them to please kill yourself.
Look up idiot in the dictionary. You know what you'll find?
Picture me?
No! The definition of the word idiot, which you f***ing are.
Oh.
Yeah, sick mom here. Her apparent goal was to get the rival cheerleaders kicked off the team. Hey, I'm just thinking, shouldn't you just encourage your daughter to maybe be, I don't know, better, practice more, try harder?
Right.
No, let's go ahead and get the girls off the team through deep fakes and hateful text messages. Now, Spone did this all without her daughter's knowledge, according to court documents. Now, I want to give a follow-up. Furthering their investigation, the police were able to run the... This is for folks who are trying this. If you're thinking, I got a good idea to get Junior head of the team. No, don't do it. Because here's how police did this. Police ran those pictures and videos through an analyzing software program. The results proved that the pictures were in fact deep fakes. Now, a deep fake is a picture of a video that has been processed with a specific program. Usually it's AI based, so it can help match and mirror the movements of whatever you're trying to match it around. So that way it can blink and move and smile like the original subject. The perpetrator had created the videos by mapping, check this out for you folks who let your girls do all these social media stuff. The perpetrator created the videos by mapping the girls' social media photos. Their faces had been plastered onto other people's heads in the risque videos. Police tracked the source of the girls' telephone numbers to a website that sells phone numbers to telemarketers. From there, they followed the data trail to an IP address and then located the house that it came from in Shalford, Pennsylvania. And it just so happens Spone lives in that house. The cops searched her smartphone and, according to court documents, found evidence linking her to the abusive images.
It's amazing. It's astounding. But it's no bullshit.
Wow. That is a lot.
There are a lot of parents who will do a lot for their children, but would you ever in a million years imagine the mentality of somebody saying, I'm going to resort to cyberbullying and deep fakes, putting girls' faces in risque situations to make it look like that's who they are and what they've done to try to make them ineligible to be part of the team.
In my real life job as a PI, I see people make
horrible decisions,
bad mistakes, use bad judgment. But this is just sick. I mean, this goes beyond just a mean text or a thoughtless, statement or whatever. This is malicious. I mean, this is bad.
Well, and here's the thing. Those pictures are out on the internet. And there are going to be people who will be fooled by those deep fakes.
And when it's out on the internet, it's out there forever.
It's out there forever. Someone's got a copy somewhere. And I feel bad for these girls. The daughter
I do too.
Not only is the daughter mortified, but the girls, of course, don't believe that she didn't know anything about it. So you want to talk about a plan that can spectacularly backfire? If she thought it was going to get her daughter advancement, it has done the exact opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. And 30 years from now at their class reunion, they'll be talking about this.
30 years from now when she's still in deep therapy.
Yeah, or in prison.
So, all right. Well, that's going to wrap up news, which means we move on to our final segment, a little bit of entertainment. What are we watching? What are we listening to? What are we reading? Let's do watching first. That's always fun. Walt, we'll go to you.
Well, there are a couple things that I'm watching. One of them is going to bore everybody to death, but one of them that is really fascinating to me is I stumbled across this kind of docudrama called Operation Varsity Blues, the college administration. The college admin scandal. This is the Felicity Huffman.
Oh, yeah, where they paid people to take their SATs or something to try to get them into a better college.
This thing is so much deeper and so much worse than I thought it was. Those people should have all gone to prison for a long, long time. It is disgusting what these folks did. And then how they just turned on each other, and everybody was scrambling to, throw the other people under the bus and to not take responsibility. And it is really bad. And I think I've got like 5 or 10 minutes left. I'm right towards the end where they're doing all the sentencing, and it is definitely worth watching. And you will be furious when you watch it. Particularly, you've got kids who've gone through the whole process of getting into college and sweating it out, waiting to find out if they've gotten in, and then paying the bills and everything else. Just these people thought that because they had money, that the world owed them something.
Right.
Or
that the rules didn't apply to them.
Absolutely. And they took advantage of it. The guy who orchestrated all this thing is a total piece of garbage. And he is just a remorseless scumbag, if all these things that are in there are true. But it is definitely, it's also fascinating. It just how they concocted this thing and how everything worked. But it's called, again, Operation Varsity Blues, the college admin scandal. And, you talk about, making videos and pictures of people. They literally took kids who had never played any sport and pasted their face into like somebody playing water polo and got them a water polo scholarship off a bribe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is absolutely unreal, and it's worth checking out and watching. But be ready to be incensed. The other one that I started watching that a friend of mine pointed me to, I'm trying to finally do some things to take care of my health a little bit better. There are a couple of documentaries and stuff out there. One's called What the Health. I caution you because I know that this is very sensationalized, but some of the information in there is really good. So if you want to juice up your life a little bit, check one of those out. What the Health is the one that I'm watching right now.
Okay. Now, I was going through, of course, some of the other episodes because we're always a couple of weeks lag. You had just started to watch WandaVision. You wanted to wait for it to all come out. Where are you with that?
I just finished episode 2 last night, and I will try to watch episode 3 tonight. Probably realistically, I'll watch it tomorrow.
Because I'm dying for you to finish it up. I know what you had said was you want to watch one and give it a couple of days just to kind of let it like percolate.
Yep.
So, but you're hooked still after 2 episodes.
Yeah, episode 1, I understand why people were a little confused as to what it is or trying to figure it out. If you don't get it, keep going. You know,
because by the end of episode 2, you know there's something going on.
That's right, and that was the thing. In episode 2, you start to get the peek behind the curtain. You realize that you know it's a Marvel thing. So you know that it's starting to roll. So I'm in.
Well, if you can allocate the time to watch 3 and 4 back to back, when you hit episode 4, that is really when you go, oh, I think I know where we're going. You don't.
6
you
episodes,
won't.
Right?
It's 9.
9 episodes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course I'm looking forward to the Winter Soldier,
the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that's starting to drop as well. So definitely the next couple of weeks I will be very busy.
Okay, good. Well, I can't encourage you enough. Of course, you heard it as we did our other guests. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you say by the time you get toward the middle and then end, because even when you think you know where it's going, Marvel is smart enough to figure out where to give you a couple of jagged turns to see if they can shake whoever's tailing them.
Right. Yep. They do a good job of that.
All right. For what I'm watching, the one big thing I watched was episode 1 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier for this week as it dropped. Great action-packed opening. I'm just beside myself that the same criticisms about WandaVision episode 1 I started to hear already with only 1 episode of this new series. You just watched everyone turn any criticisms they had around, and by the end, everyone's like, oh my God, it was one of the greatest things on television. And the first thing was, well, after that action-packed opening, sort of a James Bondish, like you're in the middle of an adventure, and you know that there's a lot, like, we don't know how they got to there, but we just know this is the culmination of the prior story. You've got the Falcon in the middle of this awesome action opening. And then it actually gets to settling into the story of who these people are and trying to return to normal life. And everyone's kind of like, oh, it got so slow, I almost turned it off. No, freaking morons. It's so good because it's like the Falcon tries to go back home. We're starting to get his home life. Raised in a fishing community, we find out. His sister was left trying to tend to the business. She wants to sell the family fishing business, sell the boat. She's sick of it. He wants to play hero because he just did after, of course, being gone in the blink for the 5 years and then back. And what's really cool about one of the episodes, one of the people I knew in theater when I was doing a lot of theater, and I actually directed him in a couple of things. We've been very good friends. Vince Pisani has a day player role where he plays the bank manager who is really happy to meet the Falcon, but he's not ready for his bank to loan them any money. And it was an interesting scene. So I thoroughly loved it. I thought you only got a glimpse of the Winter Soldier's kind of backstory, but you realize he's still in therapy and he's obligated because he'd been so mind warped for so long from Hydra from the previous stories that he has to go to therapy. He has to be constantly monitored in case there's anything else that's been planted in him. And he doesn't want to do it. And to me, I couldn't believe it was already over when it came to the end. And so anybody who thinks it's slow, I don't know what you're watching. It was great.
Well, and again, I don't get these guys that sit in their basement and criticize everything. I really don't. You know that Marvel is going to do a good job. There's no reason to think they're not. They have consistently blown us away with everything that they've done.
But even at the very least, let it evolve. Wait till you get maybe a third of the way into the story and go, okay, I just don't like where the story is going. But you don't even know where the story is going yet.
Right. I mean, these people are impossible to please. And,
right.
And they jump the gun. I guess they want to be like the first one to nail the criticism.
Right.
But there's not anything to criticize. These are good stories.
I would say, just like with WandaVision, just like with Mandalorian, I've actually gotten over the wanting to binge it. It's amazing how I got over it with Mandalorian season 2. I knew, okay, we're only going to get these once a week. That's fine. So I actually was fine with WandaVision. It was actually kind of cool to return to the idea of, hey, I can talk to my buddies. I can be online. I can try not to wait till everybody's seen it, and then we'll talk and make sure we don't spoil it for anybody. Mm-hmm. I've enjoyed that. And so to only have one episode drop right now of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'm totally cool with. I'm ready to watch the next episode on Friday.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I like the once a week drop.
That's all I had. Everything else, I'm still trying to work my way through Star Trek season 1, but I actually, since the last episode, I've had so much going on as you heard in the opening, so much radio, I didn't have any time to get any shows in, so it'll be probably next week where I can kind of keep working on that one.
Yeah, good. It's a great season. There's so many good stories in that, so it's a classic for a reason.
All right. Anything you're reading this week?
I am still working on that Van Halen book. I'm about, I don't know, a little over halfway through. I've been busy this week as well and just have not had much time to read. But it's called Running with the Devil. It is by Noel Monk, and Noel is a really great guy. I think I said this last week, I've sent him a couple notes here and there when I've had questions about the book, and he's responded just within, a very short time and hinted at some things or said, hey, I'll answer that as the book goes on. But it's a very good read. It's very entertaining. If you're a Van Halen fan, you need to check it out.
All right. For me, reading, this is going to be one of those ones I'm dropping here as a possible guest. I don't have the book, but this is so cool how sometimes relationships work out. I have a great friend from high school that I had reconnected with after years. We get together all the time. We're always online chatting. She loves listening to me on the radio. But she apparently somehow, through her church, got hooked up with a guy who's in Florida, who is a photographer. His name is Gene Ho. What I didn't know about Gene Ho is he had a lifelong photography business, and when Donald Trump was announcing his candidacy, his campaign team wanted to have photographers assigned to the campaign to document it, and so photographers submitted their work. He was selected to be the photographer of the campaign, the 2016 campaign. He was with Donald Trump for the entire campaign, taking candid pictures behind the scenes, trying to be sort of a fly on the wall. Published a book that immediately became a New York Times bestseller, but was also banned in more places than anything because of the hate of the president. And now, because he has had a conversion, he didn't think about Christianity before, he didn't think about politics before, he was just a photographer, and he had an awakening and is now running for mayor of the city that he lives in Florida. And,
really?
And we actually exchanged emails. I'm going to get a copy of his book because I'd love to see it, but there's a super strong possibility we'll have him as a guest.
That would be fantastic. That would be a great interview.
He tells a fantastic story. I'm going to have him redo it, but I'm going to just kind of peel it away right now. He was on the Mike Huckabee show. And so the guy is Oriental descent, but he's got really long black hair. He dresses really hip. And he said, I was in this casino in Vegas, and I'm walking through the casino having just gotten done with the campaign trail. I put out this book. I'm a New York Times bestseller. People know my name now, the photography. This woman in the middle of the casino points from across the way and says, look, it's you. And he goes, me? He goes, yes, it's you. He goes, yeah, it is me. She goes, you're the lead singer of Journey. He's like, no.
That is awesome.
But his name's Gene Ho, and so I haven't read his book, but I actually watched him discuss it and talked about it, did a little research, and so it's not technically what I'm reading, but it's what I'm looking forward to reading, and hopefully it's going to germinate a guest on our show.
That is great. That is great. Being podcasters, we don't really get recognized very often. So
no.
Kind of looking forward to that never happening to me.
All right, let's wrap up. What are you listening to?
I may have mentioned this last week, but I finished it this week. A podcast called Gangster House. It's a couple of years old, but it was just brought to my attention by a couple of my friends. There was a guy on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list named Michael George Thevis. He was an arsonist, a pornographer, a murderer.
He lived up the block, right?
He did. Well, and his girlfriend lived in my neighborhood growing up. So check that out. It is really, really fascinating. It again is called Gangster House. This guy was he was an Italian mobster of Greek descent living in Atlanta. I mean, but he was the mob, and every weird twist that you can imagine in this thing. But it's kind of the Southern version of the the Galante family or something. So, but it's really well done. They splice in a lot of the news from WSB News at the time. They interview a couple of the FBI agents and the prosecutor involved in it, and several other people, including his son Tony. So it's really great. It's definitely worth listening to. So check out Gangster House.
All right, I've just got two I want to mention. One is another shameless plug, but it's our show. We should be able to promote our other things. And
Absolutely.
So the Marriage Fit podcast finally taught my wife how to use Instagram. So her trip that she just came from, where she spent 4 nights on Cumberland Island, she's been posting some of those pictures. And if you listen to the episode and she was talking about the wildlife, about the trees, about the sunsets and the sunrises, she's putting out those pictures on the Marriage Fit podcast Instagram page. Well worth checking out. I'm telling you, I had no desire to spend 3 or 4 nights camping and hiking an island where there's no technology, no food, no stores, no nothing. After seeing that wildlife, I'm like, I could do that for a couple days at least. I could certainly, just to take pictures.
It's a fantastic place.
So the Marriage Fit podcast on your podcatchers of choice. It's me and my wife. It's a completely different style of podcast. We're actually a little bit more, I'm the goofy one, but we do try to have some fun, but it's all about some of the life lessons we've learned. Some of them are hard, some of them not so, but ultimately it's our way of kind of like, hey, this is what we learned along the way. We're 50 years into our lives and, dozens of years into married life. And so, if somebody learned something along the way, great. If not, we're having fun doing it.
Well, I think one thing about y'all that I will say is that y'all have had some unique experiences, but you also do a really good job of taking stock in what's going on in your life and digesting those things. And I think that I have to admit, I've not listened yet. I will, but
but the conversations we have.
Yeah, I've been there for some of those, like when I dropped off your Christmas present, and I think that you have a unique ability. You and Susan both have a unique ability of learning those life lessons and then putting them in a capsule that allows other people to digest those as well.
Well, and the big thing for us is it's not about, I don't want to come across as preachy. I actually did a lot of research into other couples podcasts or marriage podcasts. A lot of them are religious based. There's nothing wrong with that. But I always felt like I was reading or hearing two people reading from the book, The Lesson of the Day. And the last thing I wanted to do was come across that way. Our stories are super real. Susan is, and admittedly so, not a podcaster, not used to public speaking. So when you're hearing her stories or hearing her talk, it's from the heart. It's what she's saying honestly. She has no idea how to craft a story in a way that would be false or misleading or try to paint it in a rosy way. She is brutally honest. The two of us really have enjoyed. I will tell you this, no matter what, as a couple on the backside of having kids starting to leave the house, one of the greatest things about this is it's forced us to keep talking, because when we don't have car rider pickups to coordinate or soccer or gymnastics or driving or jobs or who's picking who up or who's sleeping over tonight, when it's just us, you forget what it was like before you had kids, and we're back in that, but it's not the same as being a young couple getting married for the first time. Now we're 50, and what do we want to do with our lives? And so that's the kind of stuff we talk about.
Well, I'm looking forward to listening. I do need to do a better job of not just supporting y'all, but I do need to learn some of those.
You know what? You're going to have plenty of time, and you're going to get to. Everyone's got things that happen in their lives. We like to always say all the time, life happens, and you know what? When it does, and you got to learn to roll with it.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And I'm sorry, I got a little distracted because Noel Monk just sent me a picture of his backstage passes from the Van Halen 1984 tour, the Monsters of Rock concert, and a Van Halen All Access from early on in one of their other tours. So I got a little distracted by looking at those.
That's totally fine. So, I mean, here I am cultivating a book that I want to turn into a guest. Are we going to get him as a guest?
I have asked him. He wants me to read his book first and see if we still want him.
Well, get on it, buddy.
I think I know the answer to that.
Anybody who's got a love of Van Halen, I want to talk to, especially with the recent, as of this recording anyway, passing of Eddie Van Halen not too many weeks back. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for us. I don't have anything else that I'm listening to, just the Marriage Fit podcast. I want to do a shout out for my wife who is really putting herself out there with me, and we are having a blast on a completely different kind of topic. So check that out. Before we wrap up, Walt, where can people learn a little bit more about us?
Well, you can find us quite a few places. Probably the best place to find us is on our website at thewilderride.com. You're going to find our biographies, our contact information, a list of all of our current guests, past guests, all our episodes, our interviews with some really cool people that we've met along the way. So check all that out. Also, you'll want to join our listeners group. So go to facebook.com/thewilderride and follow us there. And then a button's going to pop up to join our listeners group. Hit that button, answer those quick 3 questions, and you're in. If you are like my brother and you don't have any social media, then you'll just have to call me every week and ask me what's going on the Wilder Ride. But I'll do the same thing to you that I did to him. I'll say, join the 21st century, get a Facebook page, and then I'll hang up on you. So that is the way to find us. And if you need to contact us, go again to either facebook.com/thewilderride, send us a note there, or go to our website, and our Gmail address is on that website.
And as I often say, take a second, no matter what podcast you're listening to, this one or any of the others you subscribe to. If you've enjoyed it, take a second to rate and review, and more importantly, hit that social media link to share, put it out there, let people know what you're listening to, and maybe you'll turn some folks on to a brand new show that they didn't even know you were listening to. And come on back next week. We've got another great guest lined up right here for the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge. We're going to talk to the business development manager of a brand new museum going up in Northwest Georgia called the Savoy Automobile Museum. And you think to yourself, well, what's the big deal? It's just a car museum. Well, the problem, most car museums are just someone's private collection, and so that's why it goes stale. They spent a year and a half touring just about every museum they could get to, talked to almost every car club, and they have come up with a model as part of the Georgia museums that includes Tellus Science Museum and the Booth Western Art Museum that will have constant changing galleries, constant changing vehicles to look at, constant themes and outdoor activities. So we can't wait to have Tom Chenal join us next week from the Savoy Automobile Museum that is slated, at least on paper, to open fall of 2021.
Well, I heard you interview him on your show a couple weeks ago, and I sent you a note, and I was like, we have got to get this guy on. And you were like, way ahead of you. So he's a great interview, very entertaining. So I'm looking forward to next week.
We will have a blast, and I am more than likely going to be able to convince him to hang out till the end of the show.
Great.
All right, Walt, that's it for us. Everybody come on back for another edition of the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge.
I wish I could sing. I want to sing us out on the Listeners Lounge.
Well, you can. I'm just going to mute you. Or I'll bring the other.
No, I'm not going to sing. No microphone.
You don't want to do the
deserves that punishment.
Big bad voodoo daddies on my exit.
There you go. That's far better.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. Oh. I can't do that.
You can do that. I can.
When you hit the dance floor, you gotta be jumping jack.